What is up? This is Driven Dynasty. I'm Levi, and we are here to talk Dynasty wide receiver rankings. So, without further ado, here are my top 50 Dynasty wide receivers today. Let's get started with the S tier. First up, we have JSN, Puka Nacua, and Jamar Chase making up our top of the S tier or the S1 tier. And then we have kind of split before the next three players, just because I think that there is just a small gap between these two little mini tiers here. So I think that JSN, Puka, and Jamar all are players who have elite, like wide receiver one overall upside every year for the next few seasons. While they might have some questions, I think that we are splitting hairs between these players, and so I'm just going to rank them in order of age. Next up, we have CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra, and Malik Nabers. CeeDee Lamb and Amon-Ra are just both elite wide receivers at the NFL level. I think that CeeDee Lamb is like a top 5 talent at the wide receiver position. He has shown that year after year. He also has the upside of being wide receiver one overall, which we have seen in the near past. And I think that his slightly disappointing production has come at the hands of an injury midseason and George Pickens just taking away some of that volume, as CeeDee Lamb is the clear alpha. As the defense lean towards CeeDee Lamb, it opens up Pickens for volume and to have production where, Lamb is the more elite wide receiver, the better talent, but just because of the situation, I think that it is very beneficial for Pickens, and it is kind of hurting Lamb a little bit, as opposed to when Lamb was just the unquestioned one. The ball was being force-fed to him a little bit more, and he was able to produce at a higher clip. Next up, Amon-Ra, one of the most consistent wide receivers in the NFL, plays through injuries, is in a very good offense with a very good offensive system in place, and a QB who is very unlikely to get hurt, as he doesn't scramble and very rarely gets sacked. So Amon-Ra, a very solid wide receiver, someone that I think you can count on year after year after year to be a producer, a high-end producer at that, like a top 5 wide receiver. Next up, Nabers. I could have him in the tier above. I could have him a tier below. It just depends on whether or not we're looking for 2026 or trying to win a championship in 2025. And so with Nabers, just trying to take in a more holistic view of Dynasty, I think that he deserves to be at the tail end of this S tier, because I would clearly have him over many of these players if we were looking for 2026, and I would have him lower if we were only focused on 2025. So just average things out and put him at the tail end of the S tier. I'll make that smaller and move it up so that we can talk about the A tier. First up, Rashee Rice, very talented wide receiver one in the Chiefs offense, connected to Patrick Mahomes, producing at an elite clip in the 5 games that he has played since he has come back from the suspension. Drake London, another elite option at the wide receiver position. He's had some issues over the years with quarterback play, but we have seen his talent, we have seen the ceiling, and if he can just get a quarterback who will throw him the ball consistently and mildly accurately, he will be an elite fantasy producer. Next up, Justin Jefferson. He is just such a good wide receiver. It's so disappointing having him in such a poor situation with J.J. McCarthy at the helm, especially since the Vikings sent away Sam Darnold so that he could be successful for the Seahawks. Jefferson isn't producing this year. I think he's scoring around 13 to 14 points per game, which is including the Carson Wentz stretch where his production was even higher. And so Jefferson's production is even lower if you only isolate the J.J. McCarthy games. It's just very sad to see such an elite wide receiver unable to do his thing and to score these fantasy points because of the situation, which, players can get better. J.J. McCarthy could continue to improve and get better over the next year or two. But for the foreseeable future, I just can't rank Justin Jefferson over players who are both younger and producing at a higher clip than he is. Next up, we have Tetairoa McMillan, and I would probably have another mini tier here, but just for spacing purposes, I kind of included Tet and Lad into my A tier here for this video. And so Tet is just someone that I feel like we've seen the flashes, we've seen the talent. He is just in a very poor situation. Hopefully the situation with the passing situation with the Panthers improves. They've been running the ball a ton with Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle, and that's been successful for the team. But we've seen what Tet can do. He has a very high target share in that offense, and if the targets come more often and more accurately, I think that Tet could, have a very similar ceiling to someone like Drake London. Next up, Ladd McConkey, very talented wide receiver. He's somebody that I'm personally pretty high on, having him here in the A tier. I like the high floor that he gives you, and with this level of wide receiver, and just the value that these wide receivers carry on your fantasy team, I prefer having players that I can feel confident in retaining their value. And Ladd is just one of those guys. If you take out the first few weeks of the season where QJ was producing and Ladd was slow to start, Ladd has been a wide receiver 1. So for the past 7-8 weeks, Ladd has been very productive. I think the Chargers offense is going to be even better in the future as you get Omarion Hampton back, as you get the offensive lineman back next year. And I just think there's a ton of upside for this offense. Now we can move on to the B tier. I'll start this off with Emeka Egbuka, another high upside rookie, just like Tet. However, Egbuka had 4 games at the beginning of the season where he came on very hot and looked good. And then since then, he's actually only had 1 game in double-digit fantasy points. My concern with Egbuka and why I don't have him in the A tier is that I'm worried that he was just taking advantage of a very good Tampa Bay offense, taking advantage of the situation, and letting the situation elevate his play instead of him kind of elevating the offense around him. And so since the linemen have gone down, Bucky has gone down, Mike Evans has gone down, and the Bucs offense is struggling, Egbuka is also struggling. So there's concern, but there's also so much upside in a young player in a good situation who we have seen significant flashes from. Next up, Brian Thomas. I think that there's been issues with quarterback play, implementing the new offensive system, and injuries for him. I'll shoot for the upside with Brian Thomas. Next up, we have Garrett Wilson, elite wide receiver, bad situation, bad quarterback play. The Jets are finally tanking. Hopefully, we'll get a very early draft pick and be able to secure a good quarterback moving forward who can support high-end production for Garrett Wilson. Nico Collins, we have seen him in the past few weeks be more productive. The emergence of Jaden Higgins and Noel and Kirk coming back from injury, I think, have all helped this offense and helped Nico open things up a little bit. It seemed like the Bills this week in Nico Collins' more disappointing fantasy performance, it seemed like they were targeting him, trying to take him out of the offense, and that opened things up for Higgins and Kirk a little bit more to produce. But when teams know that there are other competent wide receivers in the offense, that if they focus too much on Nico, then they will get torn up by the other options. I think that could give Nico a little bit more breathing room to make those big plays that he is known for and be fantasy productive. Travis Hunter, another high upside player that I am choosing to be optimistic on. He has so much upside just athletically as a player. And just in this range, we're getting into a place where I'm more comfortable swinging on upside as we move into the wide receiver 20 range. Next up, we have Marv, high upside player. He was looking good with Jacoby Brissett. Unfortunately, has been down with appendicitis. Haven't gotten to see him with Brissett the last few weeks. Would have really liked to see that. Would really like to see a different quarterback next year for the Cardinals. I just don't think Kyler and Marv were ever on the same page or were ever a good fit. So we will have to see moving forward. Olave has had a very, very good season. And really the question that I like to ask is, what is the difference between Olave and Garrett Wilson right now? Olave is averaging more fantasy points per game this year. They both have significant concerns at QB. They're both 25 years old, and they are both elite wide receivers. Now, I would still rather have Garrett Wilson over Olave. I think that he is just a better talent, even if only by a little bit. However, I think that the similarities are enough that Olave should be, if not at the tail end of this tier, at the top of the next one in the C tier. So moving on to said C tier. We'll start off with George Pickens. He's been very productive in the Dallas offense this year. The problem is that we don't know where he's going to be next year. If he re-signs with Dallas, then I would probably move him up these rankings a bit. I think it's just so beneficial for him as an elite wide receiver to be playing across from CeeDee Lamb with Dak Prescott throwing him the ball, where CeeDee Lamb is going to just open up the field for Pickens, give him a lot of one-on-ones where he thrives, and can make some big plays like he has been this year. Still think that CeeDee Lamb is the much better wide receiver, but Pickens has been taking full advantage of the situation in Dallas. Next up, Rome Odunze. He's someone I am lower on. He came on hot the first 4 weeks of the season, and then since then has just been very inconsistent, with a couple games around 20 points, and then every other game being in the single digits, I believe. So Rome is somebody that benefited a lot, I think, in the beginning of the season from the run game being ineffective, from Burden and Loveland not seeing the field, and from DJ Moore kind of being an afterthought for the Bears offense. However, as the season has progressed, the run game has improved, the rookies have gotten on the field, and DJ Moore has gotten more involved. And so, I don't think that it's just random variance that Odunze's production has gone down and been more inconsistent. I think it's systemic changes in the offense that has brought his production down. And I don't know if those systemic changes are going to shift or move away from what they are right now moving forward, because the rookies are still going to be there, improving, getting better. And I think that the run game is likely going to be a point of emphasis for the Bears team in the offseason, looking to improve in the personnel department. Next up, we have Devontae Smith. He's been very productive this year, more so than A.J. Brown. He's in a good offense, and we know that he is a very good NFL wide receiver in his own right, and he is younger than A.J. Brown, so I feel comfortable ranking him in the same tier as Brown, but a few spots ahead of him. T. Higgins, elite wide receiver talent, but a wide receiver too, but in a very high-octane Bengals offense usually. Hopefully, with Joe Burrow coming back, T. Higgins can return to his former production of a high-end wide receiver too, but we will have to see. And this Bengals offense, there is just always something missing from it. Almost always somebody is hurt, and it can't function at 100%. And so when it is, we saw what happened last year with Jamar Chase being the wide receiver 1 overall. But the question is, can this offense stay running at that high level of efficiency? Jalen Waddle has been receiving a ton of target volume since Tyreek Hill went down with his injury. But the question is, what is going to happen with this Dolphins team? What's going to happen in the offseason? Are they going to bring in more receivers? Because right now it's like Jalen Waddle, Achane, and there's nothing else going on in this Dolphins offense. So there's definitely some questions for this team, but Waddle has been good this year. And as long as he is the wide receiver 1 for the Dolphins, I think that he is going to be someone that you will need to start on a week-to-week basis. Zay Flowers, very talented wide receiver in a run-first offense who doesn't really have much red zone upside. Just his small stature and playing alongside Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, DeAndre Hopkins, just a plethora of red zone threats everywhere you look. I think that he has been underperforming due to Lamar's injury, and then Lamar being slow, kind of coming back from the injury as well, hasn't really looked like himself yet since he's been back. So I think that there is more upside for Zay Flowers, but his upside is still capped. A.J. Brown, if he's going to be outproduced by Devontae Smith, and he is locked into this low-volume pass attack, not receiving much volume and not getting a ton of downfield looks, then, he's just not someone I'm excited about rostering or starting, but he is an elite wide receiver. And so you can only let him slide so far down your rankings. And to tie up the C tier, we have Michael Pittman. He has been just a very solid, high-end wide receiver 2 this year. And really, if you look back, besides last year where there was, some issues with the offense and the quarterback play for sure, but he was also dealing with a significant back injury that almost sidelined him for the whole season. He decided to play through it. I think that was really, those two factors put together were just really limiting for Pittman. And now that he's healthy and there is someone who can, reasonably throw the ball over the middle of the field, he's been productive, and I think that he will continue to be so for the foreseeable future. Next up is the D tier. And I'll try and go through these players just a little bit more quickly. Ricky Pearsall, he has upside. He could be the one for the 49ers, or he could not be. it's tough to tell. We don't have a large sample size, but the upside is there, which is why I have him at the top of this tier. Next up, Jamison Williams. We know what he is. He's a boom bust in a very good offense, but he's locked into that offense for the foreseeable future and is a young player. So he's somebody who I would be happy to have in my flex spot for the foreseeable future. Next up, Devontae Adams. Much different than the prior two players, a veteran who is like a wide receiver one this year, has wide receiver one upside, this year, next year, however many years he wants to play. He's an elite wide receiver. And at this price, I would want him on my team just for the pure production, even if it is limited. Next up, we have Jordan Addison. He is a very good player, wide receiver 2 for the Minnesota Vikings. Previously, he was able to still maintain like a 13, 14, 15 point per game production. However, with J.J. McCarthy, Addison is feeling that same squeeze as Justin Jefferson. Addison's production honestly looks better than it has felt this year if you're just looking at the fantasy points created, because it seems like every week he has like a last-minute touchdown or a last-minute like big yardage catch that kind of saves his week. It's really tough being an owner for Jordan Addison, or a fantasy owner for Jordan Addison, and just watching him have a 0 all game or 3 points for the majority of the game. And then finally he has that one play at the end of the game. He didn't have that play this game, this week, and he unfortunately put up, I believe, 0 points for your lineup. DK Metcalf, another boom bust player. He's a little bit older, but not quite as old as the other veterans in this tier. And so even though he's not producing as much as an Adams, a Debo, or a Sutton, he should have more longevity than those players. Debo is somebody who I'm very concerned about the future moving forward, where he'll be, if he'll be productive, but he's been producing like a high end to mid wide receiver 2 this season for the majority of it. And as long as he's doing that, then he has value for your dynasty teams. And lastly, in the D tier, Courtland Sutton. I still think he's the better player between him and Troy Franklin. I think he's the best weapon that this Denver offense has. But whenever you have one weapon that is just clearly better than the rest, defenses tend to try and shut that weapon down. So unfortunately for Sutton, he gets a lot of attention from the defense, and I think that opens up things for the offense and for Troy Franklin, who we'll talk about later. But I have more confidence in Courtland Sutton just being an elite talent at the wide receiver position in the NFL. And so this is where I have him ranked at the end of the D tier. Now for the E tier, we'll start off with Luther Burden, high upside rookie, more of a stash for now, but someone that I am excited to see what he can do in his second and third years in the NFL. More of a raw prospect, and so we'll just have to wait and see. Brandon Ayuk, there's something weird going on in San Francisco with the 49ers and Brandon Ayuk. I don't really know what it is. I don't think anybody outside of the organization really knows all the details, so I'll keep my conjecture to a minimum there and just say that he is or at least in the past, has been an elite wide receiver in terms of advanced metrics and an elite fantasy producer. And so hopefully, either with the 49ers or someone else, he can still be an elite asset for your fantasy teams. Next, Jaden Reed, part-time player, has been injured. We know he has a ton of talent, but he's not in a great situation to show it. Only gets a certain portion of the snaps, like 50 to 60 to 65% of the snaps in any given game. So hard for him to be productive consistently. He thrives on big plays. And he does have the talent to make big plays, but without the volume, it's hard to project him out well on a week-to-week basis. Alec Pierce has really come on this year, has improved from a route running perspective, is more than just a deep threat now, has developed some proficiency with the short and intermediate routes, and is benefiting from the electric Colts offense this year under, you guessed it, Daniel Jones. So Alec Pierce is a player that I think we can all have some confidence in, both from a talent perspective and from a role perspective. Since the Colts traded away Adonai Mitchell, I think the Colts recognize that Pierce is their guy. So next up, Jaden Higgins, another rookie. He has been coming on lately, and it's great to see I like the upside with Higgins. I think he's a great complement to Nico Collins, but it's just tough to know how this wide receiver room is going to shake out on a week-to-week basis right now, and also tough to know what it's going to look like moving into the future as well. Quentin Johnson, not somebody I'm super excited about. He has shown some nice talent this year on the field, especially early in the season, but then his role has kind of been taken over by Oronde Gadsden, which is very discouraging. Same thing with DJ Moore. There's definitely upside with him. He's been more productive in this Bears offense the past several weeks as opposed to the beginning of the season with his slow start, but still not somebody you feel great starting on a week-to-week basis. But there is also the upside if he gets to go to a different situation that is where there's a more open receiving core. He could still be an elite fantasy producer. Okay, and then lastly, we will move on to the F tier. Xavier Worthy, talented, has a lot of big playability, but is behind Rashee Rice and is more of a boom bust big play threat as opposed to a player who's going to get a lot of volume. The big plays really haven't been there so far this season for Worthy, but the Chiefs are trying to get him the ball on deep shots, and I think that it will connect sooner or later. But even if it does, still boom or bust with a low upside. Matthew Golden, rookie raw prospect, somebody that I think we're going to have to wait and see on, and this is kind of the price that I would be comfortable with that. He had a ton of opportunity this year with all the injuries to the receiving core in Green Bay. Hasn't really done anything with it, but I don't want to tank him in the rankings. We'll just have to see what he does moving forward in the coming years. Khalil Shakir, high floor, low ceiling player connected to Josh Allen, solid flex play kind of player, especially in deeper leagues. Troy Franklin, he's been productive this year, but somebody that I could just see being easily replaced by the Broncos if they were to get another one or two weapons for this offense. Not somebody I'm super confident in having a lot of staying power as a high-end fantasy option, but there's still upside there. Young player in a pretty good offense. Josh Downs, another part-time player, very talented. I think he has a very solidified role in the Colts offense, but he has both a low floor and a low ceiling on a week-to-week basis based on his usage. Juwan Jennings could be relevant after this year. We'll have to see. Again, things are weird in San Francisco, and we don't know how this wide receiver room is going to shake out moving forward. But he could still be useful asset in the future. So there's the upside there. Chris Godwin still coming back, trying to get up to 100% from the injury, but he just hasn't really been very productive. And I'm not sure if this is just going to be the new normal for Godwin, or again, if he's still trying to get ramped back up to full health. But either way, not somebody that I'm super excited to have on my teams right now, but he does have a considerable amount of upside. Next up, Terry McLaurin, another injured veteran. I would much rather have Godwin, who I feel like has more production upside than McLaurin. But I'm still not necessarily chasing trading for Godwin on my fantasy teams. Jacoby Myers, I think that while he's playing for the Jags, he is, a wide receiver 3 play on a week-to-week basis. But hopefully the upside with him is if he gets moved to a better situation next year, and he can return to his low end wide receiver 2 production and just continue being what he has been for the last several years. And last but not least, number 50 is Stefon Diggs. He is actually producing, but the production that he's providing just isn't really a significant difference from something that you're getting from a Khalil Shakir, a Troy Franklin, a Juwan Jennings type of player. And he is, significantly older, and we don't know when that fall off is going to be for Diggs. So if I can get equivalent or equitable production in an asset that's 6 or 7 years younger, then that's just the direction that I'm going to go. That is the top 50 Dynasty wide receivers in my rankings. You can move these players around within the tiers as you see fit, and I would be okay with it. But I also know that I'm probably going to disagree with many people on many players, and that's okay. I have given you some of my reasons for where I have these players ranked. If you have different reasons, then I'd love to hear them. Go ahead and throw them down in the comments. Tell me the players that I am too high on or too low on. But if you want to support the channel, there's a couple different ways you can do that. Dropping a like and subscribing, super helpful. You can also join the free Discord that's down in the description. And I'm currently doing free team reviews for Dynasty teams. So if you are interested in that, then go find the link down in the description, join the Discord, and follow the instructions in the description for getting a free team review. But other than that, that's all I have for you guys. Thank you for listening, and I appreciate you.